Okay. So we're going to spend the next couple of days talking about leadership and management. So the ISM boys and girls have a specific differences between leadership and management. And we'll cover leadership today and management tomorrow. So supervise and lead supply management employees. That's our task. So issues in organizational management and administration. Whenever you're talking about leadership and management, you're talking about delegation of authority and delegation of responsibility. So in principle, it's delegation is the assignment of tasks and the granting of authority to make commitments to perform these tasks and then holding people responsible for the results. So in the assignment of tasks, it's a natural division of labor. It's why your boss hires you, because they can't do everything. Natural grouping of activities occurs. Employees not only need to be told what tasks they are to perform, but also the company goals these tasks contribute to, which is the why are you doing them? And then there's the granting of authority. So it's pointless to assign a task without also granting the authority to carry the task out. So ISM says a commodity manager needs to have the authority to bind the company on a contract. Yes and no. I mean, here at PACCAR, the commodity manager does not have that authority. Only the VP has that authority. Unless, of course, you consider the blanket purchase order or the contract in GPPS a contract, then the commodity manager does have that authority. But the commodity manager would negotiate the contract or the LTA. At the same time, a supervisor needs to have the authority to direct a subordinate. So you got this kind of yin and yang that has to go on between authority and responsibility. The presence of responsibility when tasks are assigned and authority is given to discharge them, the recipients are not free to comply or ignore them. So the recipients have the responsibility to fulfill their assignments to the best of their ability. In a like manner, the executive who assigns the duties is still ultimately responsible for their fulfillment. So that breeds the saying that you cannot delegate responsibility. To some extent, to some degree you can, but eventually Brennan is responsible for everything we do. Responsibility has connotations. Subordinates have immediate responsibility for the performance of their assignments, and those who delegate authority still have ultimate responsibility for the task, which, Brennan delegates through senior purchasing management down to the commodity manager. But if the commodity manager screws up, it's still on Brennan. I mean, the guys on the 6th floor are not going to want to talk to the commodity manager. They're going to want to talk to Brennan. All right. Parity of authority and responsibility. So matching responsibility delegated with appropriate authority to get the task completed. So, I mean, since an individual can only be responsible for tasks directly under their control, the amount of responsibility the individual accepts, that's the upper limit on the authority that needs to be delegated. So if you tell a commodity manager that you want them to negotiate this contract, but then you give them no authority to make any kind of deals, that's going to be a problem. Because usually when a commodity manager is negotiating a contract, a lot of it, the commodity manager has the authority to negotiate. There are certain aspects on that contract that the director's going to reserve authority to negotiate those or tell the commodity manager what to do. But if you're not going to give the commodity manager any authority to negotiate the contract, it's going to be hard to do. And then there's the chain of command. Responsibility not only carries with it an obligation to accomplish desired results, but also to account to a superior for the degree of success achieved. So if you've got full responsibility, the task can be complete, it can be partial, it can be shared, or it can be limited by some factor. Relationships can be clear and communication more direct if the structure of the department is designed so that each subordinate has only one superior. And in most cases, that's what you'll find when you get into these companies that have matrix relationships. A lot of service industry companies do. It gets a little more muddy. Flat organization is one which one supervisor has many people reporting to him. So a flat organization cuts out a lot of the middle management. Then you got something called span of influence, the extent to which people interact with and influence others outside of their span of control. So you got span of control, which are your direct reports, and then span of influence. So while purchasing interacts with a wide variety of other functions, they are not in their span of control, but they could be in our span of influence. Purchasing must seek to establish span of influence with other functions and suppliers, and this requires positive and visible results. And then information dissemination. So the diffusion of information within or outside the company by purchasing is a wide span of information dissemination means more people have access to the information. And a wide span of information dissemination can also assist the buyer in establishing a wide span of influence. So it's hard to have a wide span of influence if you don't have a wide span of information dissemination. So these are major leadership roles. There's 3 of them, according to ISM. You got to set direction, assess supply risks and opportunities, and develop visions and strategies, which is, the mission, the vision, and the goals and all that. Then you got to create alignment, internal and external shareholders with vision. So you got to horizontally and vertically align all the goals. And then you got to gain commitment through motivation and inspiration to get individuals to help to achieve those visions and strategies. So those 3 things, according to ISM, are the 3 major tasks of leadership: set direction, create alignment, and gain commitment. So leadership, when you kind of look at the word, the actual word comes from Old English, lethan, which means to go, and leth, which means to go forth and die. So yeah, everybody sign me up, man. I want to be a leader. In the Middle Ages, leaders were authority figures who had status by virtue of their position: kings, princes, dukes, birthright, basically. Leadership today is broader, according to businessdictionary.com, involves establishing a clear vision, sharing that vision with others so they follow willingly, providing the information, knowledge, and methods to realize the vision, coordinating and balancing the conflicting interests. And a leader steps up in times of crisis and can think and act creatively in difficult situations. So when we say leadership, we often think of the Western model. But if you go around the world, there's different leadership models. So in the West, which is Europe, Western Europe, and the United States, or North America, a leader is a person who leads a group of followers. So it's the single leader out front in the West. Ancient China considered a good leader to be less visible. When the work is done, we did it ourselves, kind of thing. So the Chinese model places emphasis on managing relationships. Before people will follow, they must believe in the leader. So it's more of a group thing in Asia than the individual thing that it is in the West. Asia ranks very high on long-term orientation and very low on individualism. And the United States is pretty much the opposite. The Asian leader gets people to make decisions for themselves by asking them questions, things like that. Whereas the Western leader will just say, come on, follow me. This is where we're going. Western leadership models have traditionally focused on a single person and their attributes or skills for getting things done. So this model is highly individualistic. much shorter term orientation in the Asian model, kind of diametrically opposed. Question focus on the leader is changing. It's becoming a process of ordinary people use when they're bringing forth the best from groups. So leaders at all levels execute the company strategies and influence the group towards achieving some end and involve others in the process and help companies go from where they are to where they could be or should be. And then there's always the question of, are leaders born or made? It's the old nature versus nurture question. Are people born with charismatic qualities? Really not. I would agree with ISM. They're not. Leaders are made. The companies seek out people with leadership potential, expose them to career experience designed to develop that potential. It's the fake it until you make it. I mean, but leaders are made from a very young age. You know, how the kids are treated growing up says what kind of confidence they'll have in their abilities. Um, what do leaders do? Leaders act and perform tasks. So Tom Peters, another one of these management gurus, says leaders focus on soft stuff, people, values, character, commitment. John Wooden, who most of you probably don't know, he was the UCLA basketball coach in the 60s and 70s and won like 10 straight championships. Leaders teach and motivate. That's what John Wooden would say. Harvard Business Review says there's 5 approaches to leadership. Strategy, focus on customers, competitors, and markets. That's one way to lead. Another way is through people, focus on values, behaviors, and attitudes. Third way is through expertise. Fourth way is through controls, focusing on creating and monitoring internal controls, which I would say is more of a management thing, but that's okay. And then change, focus on continual reinvention. So the Center for Creative Leadership defines 3 areas leaders focus on: setting a direction, aligning people, and motivating and inspiring, which is that. So you know where ISM got that from. Center for Creative Leadership. And then we've got theories of leadership. So motivators of behavior, internal drivers that explain behavior. Achievement-oriented leaders will aspire to meet or exceed standards and plan their long-term career development. And they can tend to micromanage subordinates and do things themselves or set the pace, kind of walk over the top of people, and all that kind of stuff. Those are achievement-oriented leaders. The affiliation-oriented leaders will aspire to establish and maintain close, friendly relationships, to be liked and accepted. But their downfall is they may avoid confrontation and giving negative feedback. And then you got the power-oriented leaders, which are closely related to the achievement-oriented. Aspire to be strong and influence others. So there's personalized power. Take and maintain their positions, reputations, generate strong emotions, may be coercive and ruthless. And then there's socialized power, want to help people feel stronger and more capable, coaches and teachers. And then there's another guy that defines 6 leadership styles. You can have a dominant style, or you can have a combination of these styles. Directive, commanding, visionary, affiliative, participative, pace setting, and coaching. And they're explained here. So favored by, behaviors of the leadership style, appropriate application, and outcomes. So if you're curious, there they are. And then contingency models of leadership effectiveness. So you got these leadership styles, and you got motivators, and then you got contingency models. So the leader must find the right level of situational control to be effective. Control and influence are determined by leader-member relations, task structure, position, power, etc. And task motivated or relationship motivated leadership situation. So Competency model says how effective a leader can be is defined by their leadership attributes, the leader's habits or traits. To be effective, the leader must develop the right set of attributes for the situation. Some leader attributes for 2020 would be things like inspiring innovation, creativity, embracing a did it ourselves attitude, and preparing and allowing for failure. That's the competency model. The leader has got to develop these competencies. And here's probably an article on this. Well, this just talks about the different behaviors, competencies that the leader's got to have. So that's the competency model. Then there's the transformational leadership model. Through the strength of their vision and personality, transformational leaders can inspire followers to change expectations and promote individual expression and help the individual perform beyond expectations. So they focus on things like vision, change management, continuous improvement, trust. And let's see what we got here. So this is tasks of the transformational leader: manage work, enhance business skills, etc. And then leadership is all about results. Formula is effective leadership equals attributes. So you got to have the habits or traits and then results times the results. Leaders must demonstrate the appropriate attributes and deliver results, and attributes keep the leader from focusing on results at all costs, which makes you the ruthless leader. And then there's a thing that's been popular the last few years is emotional intelligence. Understanding one's own emotions. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So empathy, motivation, social skills, that's all social or emotional intelligence. It's basically how do you deal with other people? Here's a test you can take, some sample results, and then there's an article if you want to know more about emotional intelligence. It's become quite the rage lately. All right. Asian Group Inc., CPO, has determined there are significant issues with the quality of the plumbing services the company provides to their plants and office buildings worldwide. All right. They have received numerous complaints and requests for either rework or refunds, and the quality issues and potential financial ramifications could significantly affect the firm's shareholder value. So I got plumbing problems. Okay. Which of the following approaches should the chief purchasing officer employ to best address the situation? What do you guys
I
think?
think C, hold the staff meeting and ask the staff to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think these guys are going to go with one of the groups, though, work groups. And my guess is it would be the formal work group. I don't know, just the way knowing ISM, but I think C would lead the B or A or D. So B, the formal work group. But in like CPO is not identified as anyone on the staff who will be directly involved in or responsible for developing specific solutions. That's kind of a dumb answer.
Okay. Yeah, I thought Asian group was located in China. So yeah, misunderstanding on my part.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's why we practice these. All right. I think that is, yeah. So and then we go to management tomorrow. So there's 6 questions out there. Why don't you go ahead and get to working on them and we'll go over in about 5 minutes. Or raise your hand if you get done. All right. Guys, ready to go over some answers here? Let's go take a look at a few. Number 1 is bravo. For a subordinate to be empowered, he or she needs to be responsible for completing the task and have the required authority. 2 is Charlie, because Joe needs to convince the other departments of the value of using supply management and strategic sourcing. 3 is also bravo, because the number of people a manager supervises is determined by a number of factors, including all of the rest of the answers. And you're looking for one that doesn't matter. 4 is delta. Joanne's supervisor has not given Joanne the authority to select the supplier, so she cannot therefore be entirely responsible for the selection. 5 is alpha. The affiliative type of leader will want to work with employees to create harmony and increase morale. And 6 is delta. Because the question STEM asks for the answer that leaders do not generally do, and planning and budgeting is a managerial task, not a leadership one. That's kind of a crappy question, but that's what it is. All right, we will pick up with management tomorrow. See you guys.
Thank you, Rick.
Yep. All right.